Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the TED Talk. Welcome back with another interview. New week, new guest, new portion of, I guess, Ted just being a nerd and making excuses to do those interviews just to get information for himself, pretty much. But this time around, I'm really happy to welcome my third guest in the second season of the TED Talk, my dear friend, Swedish AWPer, right now, currently a free agent, but an ex Young Ninjas and GamerLegion AWPer era. How are you doing, my friend?
Bro, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastically well. Actually, something fun to start it off with. We wanted to do the interview like 2 weeks ago, or even 3 weeks ago, but then you got sick, then I got
Yeah.
sick, and that's why we're doing it so late. So both me and you went through a tough time, I guess. But yeah, we're gonna chat about how things have been going for you lately. Later on, when we get into the free agency part, but something that I do with most of my guests, if not all of them, I'm gonna start you off with the most basic question asked ever in the world. How did you get into playing video games, and when did it happen?
The way I got into games overall was like me being constantly hurt from playing football. I would play football a lot, and I would have
Okay.
a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And when I was injured, just sitting at home, I had nothing to do. So then I started playing like games on my dad's computer, like Minecraft and stuff like that. How I
Okay.
got into games.
About what time was that? Were you in your teenage years, or were you still really young?
I would say like really young, like 12 or 13. I don't really remember. Not that good with dates overall.
Okay. So around 12, 13, you stopped playing football that much because of injuries. Sadly, this is, but by the way, what happens to a lot of people that have trained
Yeah,
football. I mean,
I
happened
know.
to me as well. It happens to 90% of people that have played football. And actually, there's a couple of gamers that have started playing like that as well. But talk me through the initial process of starting to get into Counter Strike. In the beginning, I assume you were just playing with friends for fun. But
Yeah.
when did it start getting a little bit more try hard ish? And when did you start actually craving to be really good at the game?
Well, my like desire to become good at the game just came naturally because that's how I feel whenever I do something, like even
Okay.
football or
Yeah.
just playing casual games. That's how I started out. I was playing casual games and I just wanted to be the best, even if it was just casually.
Yeah.
So when my cousin introduced me to CS Source, I think, and then CS:GO, I immediately wanted to be better than him. And then we found more friends living in our small town, and then I wanted to be better than them, and just kept going.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, something before we get into it even further, because you said you've played football. What position were you when you were playing football? Because if you say that you were a striker and then you pick up the AVP, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I was like a striker, mid laner, but mostly striker. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So you want to be a star, essentially, is what we're getting out of this. You were a striker, then you pick up the AVP. So you start playing CS, you start getting a little bit better. Talk me through a little bit, by the way. Something that I'm really curious to for you to talk about is the domestic Swedish scene, and how you got into essentially starting to play a little bit more tournaments, because we know I've talked to some Norwegian, some Danish players, and everyone says that. And of course, I've talked to Fuzi as well about the Swedish scene a little bit. And it kind of feels like the Scandinavians, every single country is like a big family of people that play CS. Everyone knows each other, everyone's playing with each other, everyone's playing LANs all of the time. Does that help you to actually get a grip of wanting to compete even more? The fact that there are so many domestic tournaments, and how was it initially just starting to, as a kid, travel around, play LANs, play different tournaments, and meet people?
Well, from like my experience, the way I got into playing competitive and just playing with a team and all that was, like you said, from a close group, and I would call that like the Face It leagues. We had like Swedish Pro League, and that's where it all started for
Yeah,
me, where I
I think
started
in
to meet.
Danish was Gelde or something like that.
Yeah, something like Danish.
Yeah,
They have their leagues and stuff, and
yeah.
it's the same here where we had like Swedish Elite Series, and then we had the Swedish Pro League. So basically, you met the same people, and you got to know the same people, and that's just how it branded out for me. And obviously, when I was really young and still now, all I want to do is like play LANs because I think it's one of the most fun thing ever. Like
Mm,
when I was young, you wouldn't care if it was like a bring your own computer LAN or whatever.
yeah.
You just wanted to go. So I mean, yeah, that's just how it went for me. Just uh, playing Swedish Pro League and being lucky that we had all these leagues and tournaments. Like we still have a lot of tournaments coming out from like Esportal, the Swedish platform as well.
Yeah.
So it's pretty lucky in that sense.
Yeah, it feels like esports that you mentioned. It feels like a lot of Swedish pros have started from playing on those platforms in those 5 months. Is there someone in particular that you've met in your really early days of playing CS that is a professional player up to this date, and you're good friends with, and you kind of started off at the same place, and now you are at a similar level?
Well, my like nearest friend that I met through CS was actually CTR,
Okay.
and we played our first team together, and
Yeah.
we met each other in lower divisions in Swedish Pro League, and then we would just grind it out together, and then we would make a team, and then we just got better, and now we're still both playing professionally. So I'd definitely say CTR then.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about Isaac as well because you spend a fair share of time with
Yeah,
Isaac on teams as well.
yeah. So Uh, Isaac, I didn't mention his name, but obviously he came in from. So when me and CTR made a team, we were looking for players. Yeah, so we
Yeah,
brought in we brought in BQ, I think, and then he recommended Isaac, and that's how we met Isaac. Like we knew him a bit from Swedish Pro League, obviously, but I wasn't as close with him then that I was with CTR. But since then, Isaac as well been my probably second closest friend because we've been in teams for so long.
yeah, yeah, I get it. And was that around the time when you decided that you wanted to pursue CS professionally, or was it a decision that you've made right before that? Because I'm always really curious when I'm talking to a player about what they think they would be doing if they weren't playing CS professionally. Was there something that you were doing with your education, maybe, or somewhat of a job that you were looking at, and you were like, okay, if CS doesn't work out, or well, maybe even before you're starting to think of a CS as a career, you're thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I want to be, for example, a doctor, but then CS comes around, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna pause that, and I'm gonna see if CS works out.
So like always, I wanted to do something that was a bit competitive.
Yeah.
I'm a really I want to win, and I want to work with a team and win and work towards goals. So
Hmm.
that's always been like my goal. Obviously, you wanted to be like a professional football player or whatever, but when I was playing CS and we started making teams and like when we traveled to our first land, I was like, holy fuck, this is so fun. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
But like even having discussions with my dad and stuff, I wasn't allowed to fully commit to gaming before I finished my education, and I had more demands. I had like I had to go to the gym like every day, so I would still be outside and do something, and so everything was like in perfect order with the help of my dad. It wasn't just 100% gaming. It was a bit of everything.
Yeah, you were keeping it balanced. I guess
Yeah,
this is a little bit off topic, but it's an interesting thing that it's quite intriguing to speak to some players that have had some kind of a sports career before that, even though you were really young. But how important do you feel like it is to be physically active, and do you feel like it directly impacts your performance in the server and helps you when you're being active?
yeah. I mean, a lot of people say it obviously and mention it all the time. Like the mind is connected to the body, and they have
Hmm.
both have to feel good. But since I'm speaking personally about my experience,
Yeah.
it's always been um, being active and getting fresh air and moving my body makes me play better and feel better. So it's always been implemented on my mind to do.
Okay, okay. So then we get into, I guess, the part of you said it was really well balanced, and you start getting into CS. Talk me through the early days of some of your first teams. You mentioned Valorix, I guess, was the team that you talked about when you mentioned ZTR, and you bring up Isaac and BQ and all of those guys. How was it at the start? Was it hard for you guys to, because you didn't really pick up a really experienced guy in your first two teams, let's say. Then in Gamer Legion you played with some more experienced guys and more well seasoned, but the first two teams, obviously, now you, ZTR, Isaac, you're all really good players, and you're all a lot more complete. But back then, was it hard to find the right structure to keep it serious? I guess keep it professional.
Well, yeah, that was like one of our main issues, just trying to be as serious as possible and practice as much as possible, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone had their own stuff to do, like everyone had school and etc. But yeah, we didn't prac a lot, and we mostly just played, and we had really fun playing with each other because we were all starting to bond, like being childish, being really good friends, and like that's how the whole road started, by just being a bunch of kids playing and having fun and shooting really hard.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Well, I guess that sums up pretty much the first couple years of your career, and then we get into, I guess, a couple months into COVID, or before COVID, and you joining Gamer Legion. You say that it was a little bit harder. I assume joining Gamer Legion, playing with a bit more experienced players around yourself, meeting Rusty. Of course, you were a Swedish core at the beginning, but you were still an international roster if you want to look at it that way. How was it just being a part of Gamer Legion, and did it really change the way that you were looking at your career and your development in CS? The fact that you get called up by a quote unquote bigger organization and more professional organization.
Yeah, well, so at that time, GamerLegion had started become like a big name within Sweden, because they had Swedish players. They even had a full Swedish roster,
Yeah.
and like always, when you're looking upwards, how to get up in the scene, you want to join like the better teams, or just get poached by them or something. So a bit funny story actually, that I won't go into details, but
I
Gamer
mean, you
Legion in
can.
the yeah, but Gamer Legion in the beginning was supposed to be a new Swedish team with me.
Hmm.
With me, CTR, pretty sure it was Hampus who was going to be the in-game leader,
Okay.
and Rusty, so that duo. And then it was going to be me and CTR from Prima Esport, obviously, and
Hmm.
then we would have this talent called Sis.
Hmm.
He doesn't play anymore. He
Yeah.
plays Valorant, and he's one of the best Valorant players ever. He goes by the nickname Leo. Not
Oh,
sure. Oh,
yeah, I know him. I
yeah.
know him.
So
Yeah.
so I always think like to this day what could have happened with that roster and stuff, but it didn't work out. And so when I first joined the team, it was international, so everything was new for me. It was my first professional team. We
Hmm.
barely cracked in my old team and stuff like that. So everything was new, and it was so much to like adapt and learn, and it was a lot of stuff going on at once at the start, obviously.
Yeah. Was it really hard for you, by the way? Because it does sound like quite a big jump and a lot of things to kind of try and comprehend and get used to, as you pointed out. The fact that not only it's your first professional team, right, with a contract with a bigger organization, but it was the first time that you started speaking in English in a team as well.
Yeah.
So was that really hard to adapt to? Was it a bit of a cultural shock? Did you guys need a couple months to get used to it? And how much time did you get or did you need to get comfortable with communicating in English?
So, like talking in English overall wasn't a big problem for me, since I have a family, international, and all that stuff. It
Okay.
was just a point of talking international. I mean, talking English with international players and all that, because a lot of stuff kept messing with my head at that point, because it was like first we were gonna have a full Swedish lineup, and then we have a new lineup with international players, and then when the project got going, we changed coach, and then we changed players, and
Yeah.
it was never an easy adaptation for me to just come in and do play my game. I would even say, maybe I got called up a bit too early. You never know. Like, I'm
Hmm.
happy I made the move and got to learn and experience all the stuff I did, but it was rough in the beginning, like really really rough.
Yeah. So you would say that maybe you were a bit too big of a rookie at the start, is what I'm getting
Uh,
from it. I mean,
Y-
you there was too many things to learn, and maybe you could have used some more experience before joining Gamer Legion.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I
Okay.
think it could have been like a bit different, as I say,
Hmm.
if it was a full Swedish lineup with some
Yeah.
friends as well, where I could just feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Do you remember which were, I guess, the hardest things for you, maybe inside of the game and outside of the game, starting to play with Gamer Legion in the first couple months?
Well, as I said, obviously learning everything new and getting into this routine of pracking full time, watching
Hmm.
demos, spending so much time, and then learning new stuff from bigger names and just adapting overall. But the hardest thing about the Game Legion period was, obviously COVID hit a bit later.
Yeah.
And then when you have international rosters with COVID, there was like no possibility to boot camp,
Hmm.
and no lands either. And I would say like lands and boot camps are like the best way to learn stuff and build your team and bond over stuff. So that was a huge back step for us right there as a team.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably it was for a lot of the teams, right? And that was one of the main discussions while COVID was going with the lack of LAN tournaments, the possibility to go boot camping and stuff like that. But to be fair, during COVID, you actually did start making a name for yourself, even though you were going through all those troubles. You were starting to get into that role, I guess, of the flashy AWPer that's sometimes lacking consistency, but then you had some crazy games and you were popping off every now and then. Did you feel like individually you were ready to get into that level? Because you said that maybe you would have used, or you could have used some more experience, maybe you could have played with Swedish players, but at least individually it felt like you were quite comfortable with Gamer Legion, especially after a couple months.
Yeah, so after a couple months, when we like finally had a roster set, because as I said, there was a lot of changes and
Yeah.
stuff that happened. But when we had a roster where I actually felt comfortable and like I started making good progress with my coach back then, Ash, who's still there and is a fantastic coach. Like when we
Yeah.
got to know each other, and like when I got comfortable with the roster and all I could do was focus now on just playing like I did in Prima, I felt really good and I had a really good period there. And I think it was purely based on that I had the skill and I still do, but I just felt so comfortable where I was with the roster and everything. I had full support from everyone, and like everyone knew that I was the star in like that old roster.
Yeah, because I had a talk with, obviously, Luca Munster, who you did
Yeah,
work with, I guess, for a really short while.
it wasn't
And
too short. It wasn't too short.
well, it was a couple
Uh,
months, right?
yeah, a couple months. Couple months.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I
that's
mean,
long.
yeah. I mean, a couple. By short, I mean compared to his time on Gamer
Yeah,
Legion
yeah,
after that, right?
yeah,
But
for
you
sure.
you you did work with him for some time, and on a couple interviews that I've had with him, on a couple conversation on podcasts, he's always said that you are one of the most mechanically gifted opers that he's seen, that he's played with, which is a pretty big compliment. But talk me through it. How much of your performance on Gamer Legion, and of course we're gonna have that talk about potentially Young Ninjas and in general, but was affected by your connection with the IGL, with the coach you bring up, Ash, with Luca himself? How important is that for an oper to have a good connection with his IGL, with the coaches, and to build that trust?
Well, I can only speak for myself personally, but I
Yeah.
think it like counts for every player that you need to have a connection within the whole team and the staff and everything. But especially for me, my biggest problem, as you said yourself, like my biggest problem wasn't my skill or like my mechanics. My biggest problem was just my mental,
Mm-hmm.
how I felt, and like I said, I had to be really comfortable to be able to do what I could do best. And at some points, I wasn't comfortable due to different reasons, roster changes, or COVID or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's things I had to experience and learn. But my inconsistency from then was just pure. I would say purely based on my mental abilities and to keep my cool and not be tilting or sad or depressed or whatever you could say. It was just my mind overall.
Okay, and what did you do in order to fix that? Because I guess this is one of the topics that's the most discussed nowadays as
Mm.
well with sports psychologists and orgs hiring
Yeah.
psychologists and thinking about how important it is because there's all of those really good individual players, but you need to give them some time to work with a professional in order for them to develop their entire potential. What did you do to get a grip of that situation? Are you still working to better that, or do you feel like at this stage of your career you're a bit better when it comes down to your mental?
I mean, just to clarify from now, like I now feel like I've been through a lot of stuff that I had to experience, and I feel
Okay.
like my mental is really on point now when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to different things, and that is mostly basically pure based on my experience with GamerLegion, obviously, because that's where I tackled all these obstacles, and I got some of the best help I've ever gotten, and mostly came down to my coach Ash, which I can to this day never praise enough. He would always try and help me with different things, like w- what we learned and that I had to understand was my routines, as I told you, made me feel comfortable and less comfortable. So, for example, as I told you, if I didn't go to the gym one day and I would just sit home and play, that would be a reason for me not feeling that mentally well or
Okay.
mentally good.
Yeah.
And my coach Ash, as I said, he would help me with all these things. We would make a schedule for me where I would, eat properly, get my gym in, watch demos together. And when you do all of this stuff, especially for me, that's when I feel better and I feel more comfortable. And Ash really helped me in that, like setting up warm up routines, even for me. Like, what is best? You want to start with 100 aimbots and whatever. And we worked really hard together. So, as I said, can't thank him enough.
It kind of feels like I love listening to this because it kind of feels like whoever I ask about Ash, he's like a father to the players that he's playing with, which is, it's really cool to hear because, again, as you pointed out, especially for an oper, it is really important that you're in your comfort zone. And one thing that I wanted to bring up again with you being an oper, the fact that not only you said that you as a person are someone that, needs to get comfortable in order to perform well, but as an oper, understanding that you have all that responsibility because you have the most expensive gun in the game. Everyone is looking at your stats, and if the team loses, everyone's looking at the stats of an oper. If they're all right, they're like, okay, then maybe the IGO is responsible for the loss. But if the oper didn't perform, everyone's going to be pointing fingers. So has that always been, or has that ever actually been something that you've been thinking about? Is that putting more pressure on you, or you don't really care about that part of the game?
As I said, that was really important for me in GamerLegion because this was one of the obstacles I had to deal with mentally as well. Because if you had a bad period, you would hear it everywhere, and especially
Yeah.
me playing in an international roster with some really good people. I was still like a rookie, playing with experienced people, and I had a lot of expectations, obviously, and I knew that, and it's something I wanted to do, but sometimes you're just not prepared for it at the moment. And at that point, there was a lot of CIS offers upcoming with insane stats and just playing their own play style, and you had to adapt. And even me and Ash worked a lot by trying to amplify like CIS AWPing into my type of AWPing and
Yeah.
finding balance with it.
Yeah.
And it takes time and hard work, and that's what I've been trying to do. But definitely it was an issue on my mind back then.
Okay, so with that being said, you spend some time on Gamer Legion. Obviously, you make a bit of a name for yourself, and then things didn't work out. You go your separate ways with the organization, and then I guess it was maybe a big surprise for me seeing you join NIP in the Academy project as well. Seeing you join Young Ninjas, did you feel like at the time that was a bit of a step back, or you felt like it was a needed step back in order for you to learn a couple things that maybe you didn't have the time to learn before joining GamerLegion, so then you could bounce back even stronger after Young Ninjas?
Yeah, so basically, my idea when I decided to part ways with GamerLegion was that I wanted to take a break to work on stuff, as I told you, my mental health
Yeah.
and my routines. So I wanted to fix like my personal life and stuff like that before I got back. And when I got back, I had some offers, international and Swedish, and Young Ninjas was one of those Swedish stuff. I mean offers. And when I knew the roster had the CTR, it made me really interested because then I knew like okay, I could really bounce back now. I'd play with my old RGL. I feel good, and we'll just take it from there, you know.
Yeah, and how did it feel the entire time in Young Ninjas if you had to summarize it? Because obviously you are more comfortable, you are getting your mental in check, but then in the meantime you're not playing the same level of competitions that you were playing when you were on Gamer
Yeah.
Legion. You can't compete to even qualify for an RMR, for a major potentially because of the main team. Did that affect you in a way, or you were kind of like lean back and you're like, okay, this is just a step that I need to take in my career, and I'm all right with not playing against those better guys for some time in order for me to fix a couple things.
Yeah, so as you said, that was probably my initial thoughts, or it was my initial thoughts that I wanted to take a step down and then playing the We Play Academy League and just finding form, finding confidence, and taking that step necessary. And also, I think it was a good, like a good move overall because just being in academy also made me get an insight on tier one overall because I had all the access to the NIP main team. You know, I had
Yeah,
their VODs from their practice. I got to talk with all their players and I got to see how they work, and I had the access to their mental coach and stuff like that. So that was one reason, and like all of these combined just made a choice open for me that I wanted to go with this path. You know.
yeah. Okay. And well, I guess now you've spent some time on Young Ninjas now for a couple months. You've been a free agent already. And obviously even I think like 30 minutes before we started recording this interview, there was a tweet that you sent me in Swedish that you are going to be playing a LAN event with some other players, like Brolin's there, Rez is there. You did mention that there's a lot of LAN tournaments happening in Sweden right now. So I guess you can't tell us if you're gonna start playing on a new team, but apparently things are starting to work out. Do you feel like you're more prepared now for a bigger project after Young Ninjas in comparison to maybe the time when you were on Gamer Legion? Do you feel like, because obviously we did go through your idea to join Young Ninjas? Do you feel like it was your idea and your goal joining Young Ninjas was accomplished? Do you feel like a stronger person, I guess, mentally, and a player that's ready for something bigger?
Well, I would for sure say yes. I had different experience in both of my teams, but Young Ninjas was unique in a way because I kind of realized how I had to. It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. You know, like
Okay.
it's gonna be. I'm just gonna find my form and prove that I'm the best, whatever it could be.
I
I
thought you were
actually had.
gonna farm and we play as well,
Yeah,
by the way.
I mean, I had a really good season in replay together with Nilo, and we won.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel as good because like this we play died after that. There were no more tournaments,
Hmm.
and the event wasn't even at LAN, which I was excited for because due to the war.
Yeah.
So even COVID held me back from playing LANs, and now I can't play LANs. So like that sucked all in all. But also I had to learn like how to work better with my teammates because I was playing with a lot of young players, and that made me like we were not even playing full time. So I was playing with a lot of young players, and I was not playing full time CS, and we were constantly playing versus full time playing teams, you know. And you came to a realization what how much time you actually need to put down and what it takes to reach the top. So I'm not really 100% satisfied with my journey there. I think we could have done a lot more and I could have shown a lot more, but I definitely learned a lot from there. And I'm even happy I took that step, playing domestically again and just knowing what to do in the future even more, making my choices clear. And when the news came that we were in Young Ninjas project were like ending for now, I still CS2 was releasing, and I still wanted to be active because this is what I wanted to do. So as I told you, I've been mixing a lot. I've been mixing with international players and Swedish players, and hopefully I'll be back on a team soon.
Yeah, hopefully. And there's a couple interesting things that I wanted to ask you about. What what would you say is the main difference? How is Era now today different than Era when he was joining Gamer Legion or during Gamer Legion days?
I would say like the biggest difference now is just how I am as a teammate and how I see at obstacles. Now I'm less like I would say in a I'm in a far better mental state than I was that back then. I hadn't experienced obstacles and I hadn't experienced taking steps back and all that stuff. So just overall, knowing how to play with my teammates and how to make all my teammates feel good and how we can progress as a team instead of just me being the best all the time. I would say, just even in football when I played as a striker, I always wanted to make goals and shine, and it was the same at starting GamerLegion. And I think now I'm just way more mature. And I know how to make my teammates feel well and how to make teams work, if I can say so.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that kind of overshadows a bit the next thing that I wanted to ask you about. I did ask you how is Era different now, but as an AWPer, what are the main differences between your playstyle a couple years ago and now? And what do you feel like is the recipe for the perfect AWPer? What the perfect AWPer should look like? And please don't say simple.
Nah, but for sure, like for me at least, and from how I've had it in different teams, like how they want their offer to be is having both sides of aggressiveness and passiveness.
Mhm.
So basically, being able to support while also being able to find openings. So if I'd say in Gamer Legion, the only thing I wanted to do was find openings. I just wanted to fucking go in there and kill everyone, and I
Yeah.
would be way too over aggressive, and the op is expensive, and like at that time, all the CIS operators that were rising were, saving a bit more and taking care of their life a bit more, just trying not to die too much, just to have op as many rounds as possible, because when you have the op, that's when you kill people. uh, but back then it was not the same for me. I just wanted to make something flashy or aggressive to get an opening or wherever. And I feel now today that I've tried to implement the other CIS style to my own style and just find the balance as perfect as possible. So now I'm trying to be both aggressive and both passive, and whatever my team needs me to do, I can adapt really well now.
Who would you say is your favorite Oper worldwide in terms of their style? Who's the person that's influenced your playstyle the most? If you can
Well,
name one or two or three names.
well, I would say it's hard, but when I was like this really aggressive opera, love to actually watch Sirson demos because he
Okay.
was he was he
I
had
thought
an
you were gonna say
interesting.
JW for a second.
Yeah, yeah, obviously JW was really fun to watch, and I really enjoyed watching him play, and Fnatic and NIP at that time. But if I'd say a opera that I watched the most demos on back then was Searson for sure,
Yeah.
because he had such a unique playstyle, and I felt like I had a unique playstyle, so I could kind of feel the same way that he did with his hopping.
Okay.
But
And
yeah, Sirson, and I obviously love watching Device just because
okay.
how good he is at hitting his shots,
Yeah.
even the easiest ones.
Yeah, when you said that you had access to the main team in NIP, I was thinking, man, I wanted to talk about Device. It would have been great if he wasn't on the bench this entire year, of course, due to some really serious reasons. But it would have been quite sick for you to be able to, I guess, get his expertise in a way and talk to him. But I guess this is something that you can do by watching demos as well to some extent. One of the last things that I wanted to talk about, obviously, we did mention that you feel really comfortable playing with ZTR. He was your, I guess you could say, day one IGL. The connection between an AWPer and an in-game leader, and the connection and the trust between an AWPer and his teammates, is something that I've actually loved talking to a lot of AWPers about. And I've heard that from I think the last one that I had a conversation like that with was Dennis Law from 500, and
Yeah.
we did have that conversation that an AWPer, because you did say that an AWPer shouldn't be too over aggressive because in the end of the day it's an expensive gun, right? But then in the meantime, it really is important for an AWPer to feel supported by his teammates to go for plays, right? Have you had those moments in your career when you felt like you didn't get the, well, I guess, the trust, and you didn't feel as comfortable to go for those plays? And which were the moments when you felt the most comfortable and the most supported by your team to go for them?
So I would say there was a period in GamerLegion, as I said, where I had Adam 9130 as an in-game leader,
Yeah.
and we just had like a special, really funny kind of bond. So he was a bit chaotic himself, and that's where I fit in really well because I like to
Okay.
be chaotic as well, and that's what I where I would say that I felt really comfortable and I just could do whatever I want, without feeling stupid because he was even more stupid than me. So that I would say, yeah, when I played with Adam 9130, I felt really good, at least back then.
Okay, okay. I assume with, obviously, we have spent a lot of time talking about your mental, by the way. That would have been a really interesting conversation if we had a sports psychologist as well on the
Yeah,
panel. But
yeah,
obviously, I'm really glad to hear that now everything's better with your confidence in the server, because as we already said, you are mechanically a really gifted player, my friend. And trust me, I've seen too much tier 2 and tier 3 CS in my life, and you are pretty sick. But I've seen a lot of CSGO. Now with CS2 coming out, and the O being a little bit different, we're not going to speak about the Michael Jackson and the Shakira peaks. We're not
yeah,
mentioning
yeah.
that stuff, but we're going to focus on the big grin itself. What are your initial thoughts on the Open CS2? Do you like it?
So actually, when I started playing, I was like, wait, this feels nice, and
All right. You might be the
I
only one.
yeah, yeah, and then I was reading Twitter and people were hating on it, and I kind of felt like, whoa, I think it's nice, but after playing with it for a while, I can tell that it's a bit hard hitting some shots and flicking or whatever, but I don't mind it too bad. I like the op and I play it. I just think the biggest problem is, actually affording the op because now you don't have a lot of rounds to play with and the economy is really bad. So my biggest issue is just having money to buy the op.
Okay, I was gonna ask you again. That kind of goes into the next question I was gonna ask you about. Obviously, your initial thoughts on CS2, but what are the things that you would change in CS2 if you had the power? I guess one of them you already mentioned, the economy.
Yeah, the economy. I actually like the max rounds right now because I like the short matches. But right now I just want, the CL Bob commands and even left hand because I have a lot of energy, so I like to have this swap hands
Yeah,
bind and just
yeah.
spam it all the time. So kind of miss that. But um, yeah, I would say that for sure, and combined with the sound, I don't really like. You can't hear a lot. I mean, it's hard to hear stuff when you're playing Nuke or Vertigo or whatever.
Yeah.
As well as
That's the
some,
reason I lost my game against you, by the way.
yeah, and some shadows. I think like in some angles the shadows are like a bit weird. You can see the whole guy before you actually see him, and yeah, yeah, I think it's a good game, but it needs some fixes to be the best.
Okay, so you are a fan of CS2. You just think it needs some time.
Yeah, it needs some time.
Okay, so before we close it out, because obviously CS2 comes up, and you are, by the looks of it, you are optimistic for it to develop and become a pretty huge thing. But going back, that's the end of a really long journey for CS:GO, and CS:GO was the first CS that you played as well, on a high level, which is, of course, for you is the first big change. For a lot of younger players, is the first big change. What are your brightest memories? What are the things that you will, when you hear CS:GO, you will associate first things first? What are your favorite memories with CS:GO?
So I only played one LAN with GamerLegion due to COVID, as I said. So me being in that team for like almost 2 years or something, and I only played one LAN, and that LAN was special because it was the RMR in Romania, and when we qualified for that, it was probably one of the best feelings, and actually being there was a great memory that I will carry with me forever and use as motivation to take me back there.
Okay, and as a viewer, was there maybe a moment in CS history, maybe a play, a highlight, or something as a fan of the game that you will remember? What's your top one?
For me personally, or just someone
Yeah, yeah,
I
for you personally, of course. Well, it might be not your gameplay, but it might be something that, let's say, you love. You're a Cold Zero fan and you love the jumping gulp or something like that. Something that made you go crazy while watching the game.
Uh, I just gotta say, like movement stuff, I think is really like, I could say sexy, but I've seen some Monesi clips when he makes a nice movement play and just hit the shots. Like that's what made me fell in love with the game. Just being, you could be like, it could look really good. It's hard for me to describe it, but
Yeah, no, I
there
think
are
I get your
there
idea.
are some moments where I could say that holy fuck, that's some nice movement.
It just looks satisfying, right? When
Yeah,
you see him hit,
yeah,
you see him hit the double B hop, and then he quick zooms someone, then he turns around, quick zooms another guy, and you're like,
yeah,
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 that's
yeah,
sexy. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I
for
get
sure.
you. I get you. I get you. Okay, well, I think with that, the last thing that, first of all, I really wanna thank you for coming over. It's been a great conversation. I wanted to do that interview with you for quite some time, and I'm really excited that you finally came through. For which, of course, I'm extremely thankful. But uh, to end it up, what can people expect from eraa in the next couple months? I was gonna say weeks, maybe months. And is there something that you'd want to say to the people out there watching and supporting you?
Uh, well, what to expect from me coming up is just hopefully that I've been able to improve as much as a player and come in with a new team now, especially grinding CS2, that I can show that this is a new game with new opportunities, and I've made my best to catch one of the opportunities and prove myself even more. And I'm honestly just thankful, even just having an interview here, and thankful for because just playing in GamerLegion, and I was playing with Mihai and obviously Munster as well. I actually managed to grab myself some Romanian fans, so there are some Romanians that have always been kind to me, and I would really like to thank them.
Okay, yeah. You know what? We Balkan people. We either love you or hate you. So when you get
Yeah,
our love, is a pretty strong feeling of love. But yeah, the Romanian scene is great. Shout out to everyone over at Romania watching right now. Well, with that, I think it's a good moment to put an end to our conversation. Thank you once again for joining me. It's been a really pleasant conversation. Thank you to everyone at home for watching. My name's Ted. I was joined by the lovely eraa. Go and make sure to follow him on Twitter. His link is going to be down below in the description. And I'll see you really, really soon with another video. Thank you for watching. Bye
thank
bye.
you.
Stay safe.
Bye bye.